Good morning, everyone. GM, and welcome to another episode of FOMO Hour. Today is Thursday, April 10th, 2025. Folks, another day for the history books is behind us. Yesterday, the stock market posted its biggest daily gain since 2008. I think arguably the third biggest of all time. We had the crypto tokens soaring as well. Recession odds are dropping. And now the question is the worst behind us, or are we in for more pain? We're going to break it all down on today's show. No Farouk, no Mando. Mando is busy, actively launching Yeet. I think it's going live as we speak. He might pop in and say hello. But in his place, we still have Logan and our favorite resident statistician, Sam. GM, how you doing?
What's up, boys? How's my sound going? Are we okay here?
Yeah, sounds great.
No issues. Perfect. I'm good, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks for hopping in.
I mean, up 12% in the stock market. I got a fair bit of money in crypto, but I actually got more money in the stock market. So I almost get more vocal when the stock market does crazy stuff. So yeah, crazy week.
We're in similar boats there. Logie, with the yellow backdrop, which I'm now associating with you. I actually like that yellow backdrop quite a bit. How are you doing, GM?
I'm doing really well. Another beautiful day here in Trujillo, Peru. I'm feeling pretty good. Can't complain. And of course, the market bump, even if down a bit from the yesterday's little peak there, that just adds a little bit of fun to the day.
It was a fun day. You got to enjoy the green days. If you can't enjoy the green days, why are you even here? Why show up every day? Your existence is going to be miserable. Folks, what are we talking about on today's show? Trump told everyone to be cool. And then a few hours later, he paused all the tariffs except for China. It does seem like the rhetoric might be dialing down. There might be a China negotiation on the table. We'll talk about that. The European Union agreed to a 90-day pause. CPI, inflation, soft print this morning. Markets rallying, but dipping here this morning. So we're talking about that. Can we trust the rally or not? Fastest runners on the board yesterday. Prompt, huge debut here this morning. A lot of FUD out there. So we're going to address the FUD. Talk, is that a buy or a sell? This Bitcoin Ponzi keeps cooking over on Abstract, doing shockingly well. The Senate confirmed crypto-friendly SEC Chair Paul Atkins. Magic Eden, major acquisition. They bought Slingshot. A lot of folks thought that was one of the best trading apps that we had. That was a big acquisition. It pumps runes. Pups is ups. Shockingly. We'll see if it pumps ordinals as well. We'll get Sam's thoughts on that. We might do a Yeet preview as well. Before we dive in, I want to give a shout out to our partners, starting with Galaxis. Galaxis is a Web3 platform empowering creators and brands to build unstoppable communities with full ownership and independence. Trusted by icons like Donald Trump, Steve Aoki, Mike Tyson, and the NBA, shaping together the future of engagement. And Wallet Connect is the connectivity network shaping the future of on-chain UX. If you've connected to a Web3 app, you've seen Wallet Connect. That blue logo, it's everywhere. An icon of trust in crypto, as recognizable as Visa at the checkout. If you want to learn more, follow at Wallet Connect on X and Telegram to stay ahead of what's next. And our new show partner, Yeet, Yeet.com. We've got the ref link scrolling at the bottom of the screen, folks. If you want to be eligible for our daily Yeet contest, go ahead and sign up, enter the code FOMO Hour in that referral code section under your profile to make sure you qualify. Those are going to start next week. So we are very excited for our new partnership. With that, let's go ahead and dive into the market report. Sims, if you want to play the music, I'll do my Mando impression here.
For daily NFT and crypto analysis. Tolerity on FOMO Hour cause the kid can't miss.
Ready to bash some barriers. Love the transition music. Helps me clear my head. So let's take a look at the board here, folks. So Bitcoin up 4.5% here today, holding right around 81,000. ETH up 5.5%. XRP up 9%. That's the top mover in majors. Sol at 113. Up quite a bit over yesterday, but retracing here this morning. If we take a look at the CNBC board, so stocks down about 2 or 3% so far on the open. Let's look at the 10-year. 10-year is down a decent chunk since yesterday. It was 4.4, back at 4.3%. So those are some of the key numbers out there. The story, of course, is out of Donald Trump. So yesterday paused the tariffs, 90-day pause to let these negotiations start to unfold, with one caveat of China. The China tariffs, I think, were bumped to 115% or 125. The number is rocketing by the day. The others are down to 10%. We saw the EU respond this morning. They are going to do a reciprocal pause as well for 90 days while we start to sort this out. So some positive news there. The market loved it. Yesterday, we saw massive candles across the crypto board. XRP and Sol were some of the winners. Hype was a big winner. Farcoin as well. Several stocks soared as well. I think MicroStrategy stock was one of the top movers on the board yesterday. It was up something like 25%, giving back some of those gains here today as well. But they were a huge winner. I think the question is, and we're starting to see these takes like the morning after. Everyone was euphoric yesterday, it felt like, or at least coming out of the doom that we were in. But now has too much damage already been done? So I think that is a question that's on a lot of folks' minds here this morning. Sam, I'll toss it to you just first, like high-level reactions to what played out yesterday. Like, were you surprised? And how are you feeling on Thursday, April 10th?
Yeah. One thing I do want to say, Pio has been in my DMs asking me to come on his MicroStrategy podcast. And I'll say it here, I'm going to do it. I'm doing it. So we can tell Pio I'm going on that podcast.
All right.
He's been asking for a while. Mando is on there. I'll go on. So yeah, that's that. I'm just getting that out of the way first. We can cut that and just send that over to Pio. Look, 3 months ago, a move like this would have rocked Donald Trump, like a move where he did something and stock markets went down 15% in 1 month. That's the type, the way that Trump was talking, the way the administration was talking, golden era for America, and we can't lie that the stock market's part of that. And it was certainly part of the way that he measured his performance in the first term. It was very tuned into the stock market, and we got this crazy move. And the dialogue shifted from Navarro and people were saying markets are going to go up over time, but Trump and Besson started saying things like, this is about Main Street, not Wall Street. Wall Street's not what we're optimizing for. It actually started going antagonistic a bit towards the stock market, saying the stock market's about globalists and about Wall Street. And I actually started to feel like investors were becoming a bit of an enemy. So I was a little worried that he wasn't going to reverse course. And that was clearly wrong. So I think to me, there's just a huge sigh of relief as someone who is an investor, as someone who spends a lot of time in markets, that what we saw was that Trump was willing to make moves based on what the 10-year was doing and based on what the stock market was doing. So I think that was to me, that in itself is very positive news. I think the way to push tariffs forward, regardless your view of tariffs, I think that this way of going forward with starting with 10% for everybody, giving it the 90-day time that something of this magnitude deserves to get to the negotiations where you want, is simply a better route than the way he initially kind of proposed on Liberation Day. So I think, I think objectively, just rationally, this is a much better approach to get a feel. One thing I learned at Uber is you never know how your ideas are going to impact the marketplace. You think you know what it will happen, but you have no idea, because marketplaces are just massive, massive organisms with so many different players. So starting with something like 10%, giving the marketplace time to sort itself out, probably the logistics of tariffs have to be difficult. How does a company in the back end even do a 45% tariff to Thailand in 3 days? It just strikes me as something that needs time. So I think from a signaling perspective, I was relieved, because I came into this administration expecting him to be extremely market friendly. I got very doubtful of that 2 days ago from the way he was talking about this market move. And to see a bit of a reflex in the right direction for markets, I think was positive. And I just think objectively, as we embark on this higher tariff kind of paradigm, easing in makes a lot more sense than the way we did it before.
Absolutely. I think that's hard to argue. I think folks rooting for that across both sides. A lot of follow-up questions here. One, I think there was a somewhat consensus reply, that's the art of the deal, baby. He just nailed it. Curious for your reactions to the art of the deal.
I mean, I have a hard time seeing what we got here. I think, in return, it's very hard to differentiate because we still don't really know exactly what he wants. And we don't know exactly like what the timeline says he wants is often very, very wrong. But, if the goal here was to get the 10-year lower, which was what a lot of people thought, well, the 10-year is higher than before Liberation Day. If the goal was to make asset prices do well, I think our biggest, I saw some commentary that like the EU was saying that every day was hurting the US more than it was hurting them because every day the stock market like was volatile and kind of in shambles, it gave everyone else more leverage. So it almost feels like that's what played out here. It's like our markets tanked, so he can't, so he switched. It wasn't like there were concessions from other people. Like what is it that we got in return from other folks in exchange for this? So I personally would not say that this was like a masterclass in deal making. I could probably wiggle my way into how it could be, but that's certainly not my reaction here. The 10-year is a lot higher than before it started because while we have leverage over our partners, they have leverage over us as well. Our assets are broadly owned globally. They can dump them, they can do certain things. And I think we saw that. And that was a lot of what got us to the table. So, and I say us as America, I know a lot of our listeners aren't American, but for me, it's hard to really look at this and say that we are in a significantly better place than we were on Tuesday of last week.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. I think it's too early to rate this whole thing as a pass or fail. I think we were chatting about that before the show. I mean, this is something that's going to play out over months and years.
Oh yeah, you can't say this is that tariffs are a failure. I just say like, was Liberation Day brilliant deal making like that? I have a hard time saying that.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And objectively, I think I said a few days ago that the simplest explanation was that this was a negotiation tactic, that he started extremely high with intentions of coming down. I think that is proving out to be the reality here.
The thing I struggle with this idea of negotiations is if you like, it was like with, I think of the one with Canada, right? Like with Canada, we slapped some tariffs on them. And then at the end of the day, like we got a fentanyl SAR in return, and then everyone said, out of the deal, like the tariffs are over. If he had called Canada and said, hey, we're going to slap 25% tariffs on you tomorrow if you don't give us a fentanyl SAR, they would have said, take 10 of them. We will hire 10. We don't care. Like if people know what they can do to get these things done ahead of time, I think people would do it. It's just a lot of the commentary also at the EU, I've read a little bit about kind of their negotiations, is that they weren't even sure what would make him happy. Like, so it's very hard to know like what people are getting. I mean, Switzerland doesn't have any tariffs on America and they got slapped with big ones. Like, what are we actually trying to squeeze from them? What are we getting for, like, a lot of this feels more theatrical than it feels like a deliberate negotiation tactic in my view, because I don't even know what the wins are. Like if we're getting the Panama Canal or whatever, stuff that we actually care about, if we're getting fentanyl down or stuff that we care about, that's one thing. But what are these wins that we're getting? Like it just feels very vague.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Objectively, more losses than wins. It piqued my interest to see the Main Street conversation really start in the last couple of days, and then a quick pivot that benefited Wall Street the most. I mean, I guess you could argue it benefits everyone. But I think you mentioned it. It felt like he was attacking markets, specifically the stock market, but they just caved in to do something to help save the stock market to a degree. So like, which is it?
Main Street and Wall Street are very tied. I mean, it's like, who's going to give these jobs to Main Street? If the big corporates have their equity value down 15% in a month, are they more or less likely to build a factory? It's like, I think it's all very tied. And I think when you start hearing Main Street, not Wall Street, I think that's like a bit of I'm sure there are scenarios where Main Street benefits and Wall Street doesn't benefit. But to me, I hear populism in that. It's like, we don't care about this thing that's failing. We don't care about this thing that's rejecting us. We care about you. Like, well, you care about it. It's just rejecting you. So you have to kind of shift your dialogue a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Logan, I've seen you nodding along. Curious for your high-level reactions to all this.
No, I think Stats did a great job of breaking it down. The signaling, that you mentioned, this whole Main Street versus Wall Street, and is Wall Street an enemy? Like I felt the same sort of way the last few days. It didn't make a lot of sense to me that this narrative started to come out. I think in particular, from my view, that Besson comment from 2 days ago was the one that like spooked me the most. But I think yesterday exactly was that. It was a concession towards Wall Street. It was, which makes, those of us on this show and many of those watching who have investments and who will continue to invest feel just a little bit better. I know there's going to be some craziness, of course, tons of volatility. That's just the way that this administration operates. But being willing not to run us even further into the ground without conceding in some way that, hey, you know what, this might not be the best path forward for all parties involved was kind of nice yesterday. So the sell-off today or whatever it may be, like I don't think yesterday was an end-all be-all, we're out of the woods type thing. But to me, it was a little bit of a reassurance that, I don't have to call my mom, tell her to just like pack up the 401k or something like that. So we can feel a little bit better moving forward. One non-serious thing about the Main Street versus Wall Street was there were some excellent tweets yesterday at the conclusion of that, kind of the like, FU Main Street type things. I can't remember the quotes off the top of my head. I just remember laughing and giggling at a few of them. Yeah.
I'm gonna try. Here's the one that tickled me quite a bit. I'll pull it up for those who follow along on the stream. We'll get the stream posted here in just a minute, folks. Eat shit Main Street as the stock started to rally. I thought that was humorous. It was a great day to be on X for sure. It was relief, much needed relief. But I do think like the question is now we're starting to look ahead. Like a lot of these big companies have the earnings coming up. They're going to have to share some forward-looking guidance. It's like, what the hell do you do in the next 90 days? Like there's still so much uncertainty.
And I think that's what's being reflected. I think, you had the markets truly tanking because there really was worry there that like the markets were just no longer a priority, like that this Main Street versus Wall Street thing was going on. Now it's like, okay, well, there's that plus the fact that the numbers, the tariff numbers were pretty excessive. But now the question is just like, okay, like what is a 10% tariff on the world? And how does that impact Google's earnings? How does that impact Apple's earnings? How does that impact their visibility, their guidance? Like those are ultimately the stock market's driven by how much money our corporations make, and I think now, like, so we had a huge rebound, I think, on the idea that this was becoming a priority again and that we weren't going to jump off the cliff. But I think now you're seeing, all right, well, now we have to see how does this actually matter? And if you actually look at the numbers, like I think I'm not an economist myself, but something like 15% of GDP is imports. It's like a few $1 trillion. You throw on a 10% tariff on it, it's a few $100 billion total. And the stock market was down 9 trillion at its worst. So there is a piece of me that wonders, like, okay, is the removal of market cap we've seen just excessive relative to the actual potential impact here?
Yeah, I think that's very fair and a widely shared concern at this point in time. Like one notable
concern slash relief. I'm also saying maybe like these moves are overblown relative to actually the dollar value impact that a 10% tariff is actually going to have.
Yeah, also very fair. I think one of the metrics that have been touted across TradFi outside of even just our CT circles is the U.S. recession odds. They peaked around 70% yesterday. I think I saw it at 60. I think Kalshi perhaps at 68. Back down to 50, 53 right now live. If you had to pick a side in this, what side are you picking? Logan, I'll toss it to you, and then we'll go to
Logan. Why don't you go? Because my kids know more.
Sure thing. Yeah, well, the most difficult part of this conversation for me, Tyler, are just the potential semantic arguments listed down below here, right? So the true definition and the way Polymarket is grading is based on the 2 straight negative quarters of GDP. Is that right?
Yes.
So you can't really get yourself around that. Trump is going to do everything he can. The administration is going to do everything they can to avoid using words like recession and conceding in that way. But all things considered, what we had negative in Q1 and so much uncertainty here, I think I'd probably be on the yes side at this number. I mean, it truly is a coin flip, even just with the odds as well. I would have liked it.
I think it's correctly.
Yeah. I would have liked either side more if and when they were, as the spread increases. This is one of those things. You can often do this with some prediction markets, like, as you deviate from 50%, just kind of sell in and out of, just like you'd be trading in and out of momentum. Because I do think it's closer to probably a coin flip type thing.
It was a good buy at 37 cents, probably maybe a decent sell at 70 cents. Because I don't think we have the Q1 numbers. I saw them floating around somewhere between minus 3.5% and minus 2.7%. So not only it has to be more negative than that, as I understand it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you have to have two.
Oh, I see.
Decreasing quarters in a row. Right. It's decreasing quarter over
decreasing quarters. Yeah.
What do you think, Tyler?
Gun to my head, if I had to bet this, I would bet yes, because of still all the uncertainty out there. Less because of the immediate tariff impacts, but more on just people kind of tightening up. I think we've already seen some decreases in industries like tourism, and just bigger companies perhaps not wanting to spend until there's a little bit more certainty around what the next 6 months to 4 years looks like.
I mean, I'll be honest. I went out to dinner with friends. I was like, let's go somewhere cheaper than normal tonight. I'm already seeing, with markets down, you're just like, I don't want to spend as much money. Like I've seen it in my own activity. Our friend Gibbs was talking about how he had a friend from Germany who almost canceled a trip here recently. Like I don't know how much tourism actually matters for GDP, but it does feel like that there are a couple factors that I'm just seeing in my own circles of people being a bit less kind of spend heavy than like 2 months ago. I made a big donation to my school. It's amazing how quickly that changes.
Could I interest you guys in a few months in Peru? Well, you won't feel so bad about going.
Daily live rate. What's your daily?
It's very low. It's a little bit different right now because my fiance's family's in, so we've been going to dinner and I've been picking up checks and stuff. But for example, we got dinner for 5 people, a bottle of wine, and desserts last night, and I think it might have been $50.
Wow,
total, maybe.
Yeah, and you probably went high end.
It was above, it was above average place. Not super high end, but above average, I'd say.
Are you in a city or where are you?
Yeah, I'm in the 3rd largest city in Peru, Trujillo. It's definitely not a tourist hotspot by any means. Not like Lima, Cusco, or some of those others, but it's a city. Yeah.
That's sweet. That's awesome.
Let's. I think we talked about the big picture. Let's maybe start talking about some market impacts. So we talked about stocks. Bitcoin at one point, it almost printed a $10,000 candle yesterday. It was at 74K on Tuesday night around 8:30. And then it got to 80. Where did it get to yesterday? 83.4. So like a $9,000 bottom to top move. Now holding at 81.3. Same, I think we had this a little bit. It does feel like Bitcoin's outperformance at this point is notable, perhaps under gold, but still like compared to the rest of the markets. I mean, it's up 2% this month.
I mean, I think like the more that the US positions itself less as like the center hotbed of the world's activity, the more like the US dollar perhaps shows signs that it doesn't want to be a reserve currency. I'm not sure if we've seen that in currency markets, but at least in rhetoric, like this is the narrative that Bitcoin was made for. I will say that Bitcoin historically has not traded like the narratives it's made for. Like a lot of the narratives that we discuss on the timeline just aren't reflected in the marketplace. But if you look at assets relative to where they were when Trump was elected, I mean, Bitcoin is still by far one of the biggest outperformers. Obviously gold probably more so, but we're still at 81,000 despite what's been a very rocky couple of months. So I think the market is starting to favor Bitcoin in the scheme of risk assets. The downside is like you can't say that for anything else in the crypto complex other than Farcoin. ETH, Sol, DOGE, like pretty much everything is getting hammered the way the rest of the risk asset world is getting hammered. But it does feel like Bitcoin itself, like the narrative that this was made, we're getting hints that it could be perhaps that perhaps there's some chance of a bit of decoupling from just NASDAQ, which I think is kind of what the people in the space would like to see. Now, to be fair, being correlated with NASDAQ has been a great thing to be correlated with over the past 15 years. Like being a risk asset this has been a very strong risk asset stretch for a couple decades. Yeah, I'm starting to think like maybe there are hints that we're going to start getting a bit like if I had incremental dollars to put in, like would I put in a NASDAQ? Would I put in a Bitcoin? Like, yeah, I think Bitcoin probably right now. Like it feels like a better thing to own.
I tend to agree, and I think there's this whole like there's the Dalio argument that we're moving towards a new world order, multipolar. You had we didn't even really have a chance to dive into that statement from the U.S. Economic Advisor Council, where they basically came out and said there's a lot of problems having the dollar be the global reserve currency, and how effectively, like if you read the pieces, like they were comfortable moving away from that. What was my interpretation of that? And I don't think that's something that happens immediately. It probably plays out over decades. But that would be Bitcoin's a winner there, right?
I mean, the other thing that's clear is that foreign money wants to be less entangled in the US, and rightfully so, right? Like we're making it very clear that there's volatility to doing business with us, that maybe we don't even want this level of like the people to be so intertwined with US decision making. So if you're China, if you're Europe, if you're really Australia, if you're other economies, like, and you can randomly get massive tariffs slapped on you or other things like that, and this whole dialogue about how you have to negotiate now, like when 2 weeks ago like this wasn't on the table, I can see a world where he goes, all right, maybe going forward we got to distance ourselves a little bit, and perhaps Bitcoin becomes a winner there.
The story that was floating around yesterday, mostly because VanEck included it in a post or a webinar. The news actually came out about a month ago, but Russia has started to use cryptocurrencies to settle oil trade. So China and Russia are doing oil deals using Bitcoin, Tether, and ETH. Actually, ETH was.
Did that get verified, or was that like I saw some comments saying it's unverified at this point?
It was from Reuters. They said they had 4 sources that they didn't want to name because of the sensitivity of the deal.
The other thing that the other thing post where everyone was saying this is fake news was that World Liberty was selling their ETH. Is that did we get word on that?
I didn't dig in. I thought that was fake though. That felt more fake, and I think more people would have been like, you think you could trust Arkham first off. Like Arkham is not always the most reliable source for whatever reason. Like for a protocol that is built on like on-chain tracking, like this should be very determinable. Like, was this their wallets or not? And like they're using words like maybe, and so I don't think it was. I think we would have seen more loud cries in the timeline.
Yeah, it is. We always do say everything is on chain, everything's on chain, but we don't say how hard it is sometimes to link wallets with actual human beings. Like it is a bit of a wrench, I think, in the everything's on chain argument, because it's very hard often to link wallets with people unless you're like have mad information.
Yeah, very true. So I think the full verdict's still out on that, but leaning no. I mean, looking at some of the other winners, I talk about hype a lot on the show, and there is a reason. There was a point where it was one of the top movers yesterday. It hit $10, I think $9.50 at the bottom. Now back to 14, so it's above the exploit level. Logie, I guess any reactions to any of the top movers that we saw?
No major reactions. I mean, I think the group was led by a cohort of, the move was led by a cohort of assets that you would anticipate being the strongest if there was a very strong market-wide boost. So, Ripple, we talked about that yesterday. That was just coincidental that it ripped right after the show. No pun intended. But, AVAX, like all those things, Doge, I mean, 10 to 15%, right? That's the type of group that, if you are looking to find a little basket of performance, expecting a larger market-wide bounce, like that's the type of group that you can always sort of rely on. Farcoin, man, this has been awesome. I don't even own any, but it's been awesome to see just the resurgence here. So 260x, or sorry, not 260x, 260% gain in the last month. Talk about outperformance. Pretty wild.
It hit that yesterday. I think folks were going to see like how much is this going to pop on the good news, and it delivered.
What do you think drives Farcoin, Tyler? Like it's such a, like we talk about it all the time, but what do you think actually are the drivers here of price?
Large mind share outside of just crypto Twitter circles. So like Eric Balkunas is a notable ETF analyst. Yesterday, he organically was like, someone had posted about how the stock market was rallying, and he said, and Farcoin rallied even more. Why is it always Farcoin? It's rent free in TradFi's heads. So I think that's one. And they have huge audiences. Like you look at some of our like influencers following counts versus some of theirs, like they're in the millions. Some of these folks. So that's bigger reach. I think the general decline of new options and memes that have survived, and people are consolidating into winners.
Yeah, I think it's the simplest, like dumb coin. Like all the other meme coins, Doge, Sheeb, whatever, they're meme coins, they're like there's no intrinsic value, but those don't necessarily represent anything beyond. Now, Doge, I think, has graduated to that level at this point, right? Like you kind of recognize Doge, but Farcoin, like everybody knows a fart.
I do too. It's like my favorite thing to send to my. I don't have any crypto friends where I live, and it's a lot of like kind of people who are big into financial markets who just aren't into crypto. So that's always the meme you send them. I was more asking like, what are the things that make it go down? This thing can go. It went down to like it can tank as well. Like is it like illiquid? Are there insiders? Like are there insiders is the wrong word. Are there whales who manipulate it? Like, is there outside of the bull case? Like, what are the things that move it in either direction, or is it just?
I mean, it does a lot of.
Am I like asking which way the wind blows?
It does a ton of perps volume, like on Hyperliquid. Like, let's see. Like, I think this ranking here is effectively in the perps trading volume. So it's sixth of all the crypto assets on Hype, and some days those are long, some days those are shorts, right? And like you've got the mercenaries out there who are more than happy to flip short on these things. So like that, and that's where you can drive some of the sell cascades down as well. But I mean, again, and like the liquidity pools are smaller compared to some of your larger tokens, of course. So less capital can drive the more big moves in either direction. But it's hard to argue that it's not one of the biggest winners. And now like the lifetime chart's starting to look good again. Like for a while I had to kind of zoom into the last month to show the picture that my bias wanted to show, but now zoom out.
If you believe in meme coins as like what they're meant to be, this feels like the perfect embodiment.
Yeah, and people don't need to know this, but it is pretty hilarious that an AI agent actually came up with this idea. Like that is the origin.
Yeah.
Truth Terminal came up with the perfect meme coin, and it turned out it was damn right.
Maybe the robots have a chance.
I think there's a non-zero chance that, let's say crypto fades into irrelevance, that Farcoin is like literally the top coin. Maybe not over Bitcoin, but
I think it could be the top meme. 100%. There's a non-zero chance of that. I think there's a non-zero chance it has its own chain, Fart chain.
I don't know that we want that, man. We're introducing too much stuff now. Execution risk with Fart chain.
Maybe it creates like Doge has a chain, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's how it started. That was its own blockchain.
Oh, I guess I didn't know the full story there. Well, we talk about this plenty. I'm sure we'll talk about it more in other AI news. We had a huge TGE today. It's a prompt. The Wayfinder token has gone live. It's opening at a $40 million market cap, $180 million FDV. Some FUD out there. Logia, I think we were talking before the show, you're a day one casher. How are you feeling with your reactions here on a big TG day?
Yeah, obviously excited that it's finally out. I've mentioned this a few times in the last few days, but it was awesome to have Kalos and Adrian on last week to see a little bit more about what the vision is and the future is for Wayfinder, which is kind of the protocol or platform that Prompt is powering. I feel okay. I think difficult conditions to launch into, and all things considered, when you compare this to a lot of the other AI tokens, like we pulled up the board yesterday, $174 million FTV, a $40 million market cap. Not all that bad. My expectations were higher, but perhaps that's just me being anchored to some of those previous, lofty AI token valuations. And some, of course, hopium as a prime casher in response receiving prompt. But I feel okay otherwise. I haven't been able to dig too much into all of the FUD. I know you mentioned cashers feeling maybe a little saying underpaid doesn't seem right, but you know what I mean? Under rewarded for locking up their prime tokens. So I can't comment just because I haven't actually seen mine, what it looks like to either join in or to say, it's not too bad. But I totally recognize the potential FUD there. If, people who have dedicated themselves to this ecosystem, locked up assets in this ecosystem, and have felt like on the other end after, providing some level of commitment that their commitment was not rewarded or, seen as such. So,
yeah, I think two primary FUD angles. One, the distribution to the prime cashers felt low. And I'm speaking personally as well. That was my initial reaction because I put a healthy amount into the prime token, have cash for the 900-day max. And I got like 30% of the tokens that people in the top 100 on the Kaido Yap board got for no capital commitment.
Right.
So that's tough to stomach.
Yeah.
And then the other FUD angle is I think folks, this is a ridiculous FUD angle. People didn't know that they were going to have the requirements that you had to be an emerging yapper to get the yap points. So basically if you already had a certain number of smart followers, certain number of yaps, you didn't get rewarded, whatever.
I'm pretty sure they communicated that like 100 times.
Yeah. So I think this is an easy one to cross out. And you didn't put anything up for that other than a little bit of your time. So you spent 30 minutes, you put some stuff in the chat GBT and you scheduled some tweets. No one feels bad for you. I do feel for the prime cashers. But with all that said, so like that is the FUD. But I mean, look at this AI board. So prompt is right now coming in at, it's the 12th token by market cap on this list. It's below the GOAT token. It's below ACT. Below Chain GPT, below AI XBT. That does not make sense. So like from a relative value perspective, this token is too cheap. Like for what prompt is.
Yeah.
And I guess for those, if you didn't watch our interview with the founders, go back and do it. But like effectively what the Wayfinder tools enable, they've got effectively a natural language smart contract coding agent. They have, but basically you can write whatever crypto program you want, limited by your imagination effectively. They've got an on-chain trading copilot, Midas, that allows you to do effectively whatever you want to do. It maps out the steps for you and you can run simulations to see, do you actually want to do this or not? Which is also pretty much unlimited to like what what type of transactions you want to do. They've got the incentives in place to have people are incentivized to build out the bridges. So like, let's say you want to bridge from Sol to ETH to Binance Smart Chain, and you want to look for the best USDC yield across all three of those chains. If they don't have the paths for that, you will earn prompt tokens by building out the paths to help execute that transaction for future people. So I do genuinely think it's one of the strongest crypto AI products we have to date.
I think that one of the issues is that it's very hard to actually these relative valuations make sense. It's very hard to back into absolute valuations. And we anchor ourselves to valuations, which are a product of the amount of FOMO in the marketplace when they're launched. And, it's like, are people like, I need to get this because tokens are ripping tomorrow and I'm going to be able to sell it for more to someone in a couple of days and I'll buy it for it today. That is the question people are asking. And I think they're more anchoring themselves to recent TGEs than saying, holy shit, AI XBT is at this market cap. So I need to buy prompt because it's lower. That's just not the way the marketplace is rewarding people right now. Like the key, is how high is the FOMO that people think that they can sell it higher very soon based on the way other TGEs have gone. And we could not be in a worse environment for that.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sure we could, but never say the environment around here can't get worse. But it has not been the environment that you're going to jump into for the sake of like people FOMOing a product.
Yeah, and that actually, that creates quite a bit of opportunity here. If you believe in prompt, if you believe in what the Wayfinder mission is, if you think that a product like what they're providing and building is going to be actually useful for crypto participants, either whether it be ourselves or the next generation, should there be one, of on-chain active participants, then this doesn't seem all that bad as the 12th AI token at $40 million market cap. I think, just circling back to some of the FUD as well, one of the issues that, I totally can get behind a bit is the communication stuff is difficult. I think they were forthright about, to the best of their ability, about like the dates, but otherwise, tokenomic wise, they deviated quite differently from how others have communicated token launches, right? Like there was not a full packet, 25-page packet with the tokenomics, right? Not to my knowledge. Has anybody seen anything like that? That doesn't mean that that's bad. It's just that it was different, and like I don't even know. I don't even know what the tokenomics are. I don't know. We were asking before the show, Tyler, like, so you've got Prime locked up for 5 years. I've got Prime locked up for 5 years. Like, am I entitled to something a little bit, down the road as a result, or was kind of everything smacked up front here?
No,
I don't know.
As I understand it, and I don't have the details, because I think you're right. That maybe they haven't been shared, but 40% are going to cashers, and it's ongoing. So it was not a upfront 40%. But I don't know the specific details, and I think that's also,
I'm going to ask a dumb question, and maybe the listeners have this question, maybe they don't. What are prime catchers?
So Prime is the
Staking.
token. Yeah. Caching is just staking, just another word for staking, and Prime being the parallel ecosystem token.
So people who have that staked got access to the token.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So from the jump, the primary ways to earn prompt was either by holding the Prime token and staking it. I think there was a way to earn it via the avatars, Loki, but I don't know if that was passive or if you had to use those in the game. Those were going to be the primary ways you could do it, and then they enabled the social program with Kaido here in the last month or so. Folks, I see Brett has joined us in the spaces. Brett, guy, good friend of the show. Your hand is up. Do you have some comments on the
Friends.
prompt? How are you doing?
Friends. Yeah. I'm coming from the technical side of the house. Some FUD that I didn't hear you guys, or maybe aren't even aware of, is some of the smart contract FUD from the actual launch. Have you guys seen the recent exploit?
From the Kaido side of the house, that was breaking like right before we went live.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if it's the Kaido side of the house, but just like people claiming from the actual contract. So like there was a FUD piece like a day or two ago from Pop Punk, right? Who's like looked at the contract after it was deployed and saw that it had like 101 errors and like hard coded values that are silly and stuff like that. So there was some FUD around that of like the irony of a project that's coming to market as like this on-chain GPT thing that couldn't even deploy their own staking contract. And then they already paused claims on the prompt stuff because there was an MEV front runner because of how they coded the claim. So anytime someone tried to claim, someone stepped in front of it, and because the claim didn't guarantee that it had to go to the person who was initiating the claim, MEV bot was stepping in front of people, and they wrote it's called a yoink. So they're yoinking the actual claims from people for a couple hours. They've accumulated like 200 ETH from people that were trying to claim.
Wow. So $200.
So that might impact price action a little bit.
Yeah. It certainly has. So thanks for sharing that. I wasn't aware of the details. So that's gonna hurt some of the sentiment day one. Yeah, I will say in disclosure, I did buy some this morning, so I am a bag holder, and that's not the right word, but I chose to buy. I had an airdrop, and instead of selling it, I chose to buy more. I do think this type of launch enables the type of price action that people can rally behind versus like where you had the TGEs that come out super high, overvalued, and then everyone races to sell. And then the chart looks terrible for the rest of time versus one that comes out at a more reasonable valuation and people can actually choose to buy in for longer term or actually hold their airdrops. So I think this is set up for that. So we will certainly see. Brett, thank you for joining us. A couple other quick topics here. This Ponzi game on abstract keeps going, folks. Like I think it's at the point where it's worth talking about. It's just a classic game where you get this. It's a mining game. It's called Bitcoin, playoff Bitcoin, similar to Tokconomics, and effectively there's ways that you can buy equipment with their token and you mine it. And then yesterday they released an update where you could sell some of your equipment back at 90%, and then you can upgrade your equipment. Anyways, the token is doing quite well. So the game is staying alive. I don't know. There's much more to say about it than that, but fun to see some success playing out on abstract these days. Some folks having fun with this one. I think that the larger piece of news that we haven't touched on yet, major acquisition in the NFT / broader crypto space, Magic Eden acquired Slingshot. Slingshot is a trading app. I think people trade meme coins, basically whatever coins you want. I was not a user, but I am in chats and friends with folks who were power users who said that this was the best trading app on the market. So this is a big one. Logie, I see you're nodding your head. What are your reactions to this one? Is this a big win here? Right, me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Magic Eden wants to sort of be one of those everything apps at this point, right? The NFT trading, they of course are, to my knowledge, the hub for Bitcoin stuff. Not much really happening there at this point in time, but
look at that green.
Yeah. Oh, yay. Some green. I don't even see RSIC on the board. That's how bad it's gotten, huh?
You don't want to see it.
Yeah. Nevertheless, to be an everything type app, you got to have everything, and you have to have a product that supports that. And they didn't really have token trading before, right? Didn't have a way for folks. Now, if you're using like the Magic Eden wallet, so I use like Magic Eden wallet from time to time for select things. There's some swaps and stuff in there, but otherwise there's no like simple trading platform via Magic Eden. So this is an opportunity, and you have to have, it's almost a prerequisite if you want to be a big, trading infrastructure beyond NFTs, of course. It's a prerequisite to have token trading at this point in time. We know from the OpenSea announcement long ago, they're going to be implementing that into OS2. So this is, this makes a lot of sense to me. It's, it's a pretty natural fit. And they, by acquiring Slingshot, I have not used Slingshot, but yeah, same thing. Anecdotally, I've seen pretty high praise for how purchasing tokens on the platform works.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize it had the chain abstraction behind it, which I actually think that is a huge unlock. Because it is a pain in the ass. Like if you're like a native Solana trader and then you see a token on base that you want to get into, but those extra steps, like it is a real barrier. So if they remove that away, that is a big benefit to the user experience. Sam, I'm curious for your thoughts, and maybe just kind of part two, just like what's the stack ranking of NFT marketplaces right now?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few thoughts here. I mean, one is like Magic Eden is at its core an NFT company, but I think it's just clear right now that as much as we want to sit around and wait for the glory days of NFTs to come back, like it's just not going to pay the bills. At least, we got to do something else. So right now, you just have to be outside of just the NFT space. Like ordinals are so cooked, and but ETH NFTs are as well. So like when was the last time you heard someone talk about a Solana NFT? Like it just has no mind share right now, and we've been waiting for over a year and it's not working. So it's not surprising that these guys feel like they want to expand. One thing I was thinking is like, has M&A ever gone well in the crypto space? Like, do we have like the Google buys YouTube, Facebook buys Instagram examples that show that M&A can be immensely accretive to companies? Like, but M&A is very hard, and it requires very good leadership and operation skills. And to be honest, I actually know the Magic Eden guys quite well. I've spent a fair bit of time with them, and I think they're as good operators as you're going to get in this space. So, it's certainly not a team I would count out, but it's not like it just feels like something that hasn't like really made headlines aside of the initial announcement in our space. And the third thing I said, I have no idea anything about Slingshot, but there are a lot of crypto companies that are actually willing to be bought very cheap, like acquihires are common. I have no idea if this was one of them, perhaps not, but there are like the amount of companies that are like that want to get acquired, because it's hard to get by as a business in this space, so perhaps but again, I almost feel uncomfortable saying that because I just don't have enough context on this product to know kind of where it stands in that rank order. But I have seen a lot of like acquisition announcements on the timeline where kind of 3 weeks ago I had heard that the acquired company was like shopping around, like basically like acqui-hire type situations.
It's clearly a direction that the NFT marketplaces are going. I think Blur is just kind of out to launch. They're happy with their current product, it seems. OpenSea leaned into token trading. Magic Eden clearly has, and then Tensor with Vector, right? Yeah. So like it's front facing, but at the same time, I think Vector has had some success. I guess if they're standalone apps, people will use them, but like I don't think people are going to NFT marketplaces to trade crypto tokens.
Yeah. No.
So I think OpenSea is going to have to figure that out for their app experience, I think, because like Slingshot's got users, Vector has users.
And I haven't heard great things about like Magic Eden's move into wallets. Like I personally don't use it, but I haven't.
It's not great.
Yeah,
it's not great.
Like people are still using Phantom and Rabby and freaking MetaMask or whatever. That's my sense at least.
Logie, real quick, but market impact of this story for both of you. I guess the new speculation for runes is that they're going to be tradable on Slingshot. That doesn't answer the question for why anyone would buy runes, which there is still no good answer for that question. But clearly the market liked it. Like this is some of the most green we've seen. And granted, probably just somewhat of a bounce.
Scroll down, keep going, show me it. Just show it.
It's red on the day.
My God.
Stop it. Jeez. Dude, RSIC is such a mess.
I fumbled a large, decent chunk, 6-figure airdrop, which is now worth almost zero.
Effing hell.
But we live and we learn.
There's just it's an interesting case study. Like, why are runes such a fail? It's like they've been a fail as meme coins have done well and as Bitcoin has done well. And meme coins on Bitcoin. I mean, the fact that DOG is still above 100 million, I guess, is nothing to scoff at. But like it is wild how in the most bullish meme coin environment we've ever had, and the most bullish Bitcoin environment we had in a little while. I mean, obviously Bitcoin used to go up 1,000% per month or whatever, but like in one of the more bullish recent Bitcoin environments, certainly after the election, that meme coins on Bitcoin were just such a colossal fail. A lot of what I try to do is figure out what drives prices and what makes things work here and what makes things fail. And like, if you knew certain things, then which stuff could you infer went up? And, I haven't really wrapped my head around why this, despite everything else, like just could not take off.
It's a tough one. I don't have the answer either. I think people will say like they'll point to wealth effect. Just wait till there's a wealth effect. I mean, we had a wealth effect in January, right? Arguably one of the biggest wealth effects that on-chain traders have had.
One thing I think is so important for any asset is that you have one thing that kind of surprisingly takes off. Like once Dogecoin takes off and becomes a $10 billion meme coin, like then everything else could be the next Dogecoin. And everything else tries to follow. Once punks take off, then JPEGs can be valuable. And once and Bored Apes and all these other things come up, because we know that we've seen some duration to the pumps we've seen. In this market, when Pepe took off, that opens the floodgates for WIF and all these other things to kind of be the next one. But I almost feel like you need that FOMO source, that like that father of all FOMO, and to just make people move into the space, make people set up the wallets. I mean, I personally still don't even know how to trade runes. There has been nothing yet that has made me be like, I got to figure out this process to chase any of this stuff. And I think that's that first one can't be manufactured. Like if you look at punks, if you look at Dogecoin, Pepe was manufactured, so maybe not, but like almost all these things, like it feels like it, but you could argue Pepe was kind of chasing Doge too. Like you just need that one thing that kind of, chromey squiggles that surprises people. And that injects the FOMO into the marketplace that is 100% necessary for anything to do well. I mean, in AI, you had it as well with AI XBT and a few others.
Yeah, it's hard to see what that catalyst is going to be. Maybe we'll be shocked. We're going to close the show here in just a minute, but this tweet from DGMD like kind of dropped my jaw there yesterday when I saw this. I saw you retweeted as well, Sam. He priced our current NFTs in ETH as of the December 16th, 2024 prices, so 4 months ago. CryptoPunks are at 14.9 ETH in those ETH terms. Pudgies are at 3. Squiggles are 1.5. I mean, this is...
Someone forgot to tell this guy that 1 ETH is 1 ETH, man.
So I think it's fair to be a little disappointed in some of the price action.
Do you guys? Like I love punks, man. I'm a huge. I have like the collector's FOMO. I like them. Like every time I announce a punks, I'm like, damn, I kind of want to know one. Like I really like punks. But yeah, you have to be worried about the fact that like this thing that has nothing to do with punks, like the ETH price, is kind of like going to be guiding your future.
We're down
for better or for worse.
The punk Bitcoin spread's going the wrong way.
The punk Bitcoin spread is going the wrong way, and it's all because of freaking Ethereum.
Yes. But we will continue to track it almost daily on this show because it is one of my favorite spreads. And I agree with you that punks are incredibly collectible. And I also hope to have another one like this one. For instance, this beautiful blonde.
You like the blonde girl?
What an incredible punk that is.
You know, it was a really good tweet that I saw about this NFT thing recently. It was actually from Kevin DeGods, who I believe left DeGods like well before the downfall, right? He said, here's the real reason most NFT projects failed. They mistook speculation for product market fit. And it really does kind of, I mean, can you say it any simpler? That's probably...
Say that again. They mistook.
Speculation for product market fit.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the issue that all crypto faces. AI faced the same thing. I mean, I actually say it was more acute with AI, where there was this idea that like, look at NVIDIA, like AI is going to be huge. AI XBT is the way you do that in crypto. And suddenly, Virtuals is a $3 billion token and AI XBT is hundreds of millions of dollars. And it was, but at the end of the day, it was all speculation driven. It's just, and it can be hard. And I still like the collectible product market fit. I think that the collectible product market fit is there, but when other tokens became utility tokens, it becomes very hard to grow into the price points. The price points are just too high. Even at current prices, like tens of thousands of dollars for apes or whatever, like for something that's anything but a collectible, I think is going to be hard to fill. You could argue it's a collectible, and I think that's the best argument for it.
I think the bull case for scarce, good digital collectibles is as strong as ever and getting stronger. The problem is with the non-scarce ones. And then how do you get into that?
Or the non-collectible ones.
Right.
It's like, I think we miss, like, most of this stuff just doesn't have provenance. Like, mutant apes, for example, like how many people are like, damn, I really want, a grin mutant ape right now. Like, I don't know if they ever cross that threshold to which people are really like, this is going to be valuable in 10 years. Whereas I think there is a lot of assumption, or at least speculation, that punks will be, like, that there's something about the narrative and the provenance that they will be.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what tests what stands the test of time. But folks, we're 4 minutes over. Fun conversation today. Sam, thank you so much for joining us. But that is going to be it. That is our show. I want to thank our listeners. As always, I want to thank our partners. Thank my co-host and Sam for joining us. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern to close out the week. Till then, go make it a great day. Bye.